Hello and welcome to this video on vacation rental photography, a completely different focus. Now before we start, you may want to pause the video and get yourself a pen and paper because you may want to take some notes, and we're going to play a little game show in a moment. So just pause the video now if you don't have a pen and paper and start it again when you do. And first off, I'll just have a quick introduction. My name's Alan Egan. I started in this business back in 2003, 2004, where I created a small listings company in southern Portugal. And in those early days, in fact, I started with just 4 properties, worked my way up after that. But even with only 4 properties, 1 or 2 properties outsold the others. And I wasn't really happy just to sit back and take that as read. I started to investigate the reasons why one would outsell the others. And I put that mainly down to the photography, and I did a lot of studying and research and tried to identify the parts that made one property sell more than the others, and then I retook photographs of those that didn't sell so well, using these new techniques, and I increased the sales on the properties that weren't selling so well. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what I discovered. I can tell you all property photos are created equal, but some are more equal than others, and I'm about to show you why. So my aim during this video is to change the way you look at your own vacation rental photography. And in order to do that, we're going to play a game show, and I'd like you to get your piece of paper and draw a line down the middle, and on one side write for sale, and on the other side write for rent. I'll give you a second to do that, or pause the video while you do that.
Trailers for sale or rent, rooms to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. Ain't got no cigarettes.
Okay, I'm going to show you a series of photographs that I've taken from real estate websites and vacation rental listing sites. And I want you to write down whether you think the property is for sale or for rent. And here's the first one. So if you think this property is for sale, write number 1 in the sale column on your piece of paper. And if you think it's for rent, write number 1 in the for rent column. I'm going to go through the rest of these quite quickly. Just jot down whether you think they're for sale or for rent. So here's number 2. Is this property for sale or for rent? Number 3, do you think this property is for sale or for rent? Number 4, for sale or rent? Number 5, is this house for sale or is it for rent? You think this one's for sale or for rent? This is number 6. Number 7, you think this property is for sale or for rent? Number 8, for sale or rent? Number 9, sale or rent? And lastly, number 10, do you think this property is for sale or for rent? Easier. So let's look at the results. Now, did you think this property was for sale or for rent? Now, pretty much most of you will have probably thought this is for sale. There are not a lot of indications that this property is for rent, although it is actually taken from a listing site and it is for rent. This too is for rent, but I think nearly all of you would have written down that it's for sale because there's no indication whatsoever that this is a rental property. Now here this is a little bit more difficult. There's no real indication that it's for sale or for rent, although it's a better quality photo, so I think more people would have leaned towards that this is a rental, even though this isn't a particularly great rental photograph. I'm not keen on these twilight shots, so they are very arty, but you'll never see anybody sitting on a lounger at this time of night, or in fact very rarely in the pool. Okay, well, I think most of you probably put down that this was for rent. And the reason for this is, of course, because I've got some props sitting on the table that are the sort of things you'd do if you were renting. You drink and read magazines and put on some suntan lotion. We'll be coming on to these factors later. This property, although it does very much look like a property for sale, is in fact for rent. It's not a great indicator, but it is for rent. But I don't blame you if we put down for sale. This is definitely for rent. We'll come on to the reasons why later. This is in fact for rent, although once again there are no real indications either way, although it's not screaming rental to me. Number 8 is also for rent, although it could be for sale. A couple of factors here that may have swayed that decision, especially the umbrella being up. Okay, did you think this was for sale? It certainly doesn't look like anybody's going to do any trouble to make us rent this. And the interesting thing is this is the same property and the same room as the photo number 6, where most people tend to think this is for rent. It wasn't a staged photo. This is pretty poor, very, very poor. Okay, so then we move on to the last one, and this is also for rent. So you may have picked up already that all of the photographs were for rent, but some actually pushed the feeling of rental. Now this one is very generic. You see photos like this all over the listings in Florida in particular, but there's nothing to tell you this is a rental. It could be for sale on a Zillow or somewhere else. Okay, so you can see from these results that you are making split-second buying decisions based on the images alone. If it doesn't look like a rental, people are far less likely to rent it. This is one of the things that I found out in the early days when I was looking for these signals as to why one property outsold another. If it doesn't look like a rental, people are far less likely to rent it. So the takeaway number 1 is, wherever possible, photos must convey that this is a rental. This particularly applies to your lead photographs. It is clickbait 101. Photos that don't convey this aspect don't convert nearly as well as those that do. So here's some homework for you. Go through all of your lead photographs, mark them as sale or rent, and those that you put sale next to really do need to be retaken, and you will get more bookings from that alone. Rental images convert at a far higher rate for a reason. Yeah, that's because every inquiry starts with a dream. Now, there are 5 stages to travel, and the first is dreaming. I won't go into the others now, but in Google's own words here, this diagram is from Google. And these words are from Google too. Inspire and inform consumers to ensure your brand makes it into the initial consideration set. That's why we've just been talking about what we have. If a potential guest can't imagine themselves on holiday at your property, they won't inquire. It's that simple. Those that do inquire have already imagined themselves sitting in your poolside lounges and the like. And that's why this photo would be far better if there were some poolside loungers, because it would be far easier for us to imagine sitting in the loungers, enjoying the view, reading a paperback book, having a beer or whatever. Now, the food industry crunches massive quantities of data to create the greatest amount of crave, or bliss point as the industry has come to call it. The bliss point is the ideal level of saltiness, sweetness and so on to ensure no one can eat just one. That is to create addiction. And that's what we're trying to do here. We need to create crave, or a bliss point, or addiction. And you need to identify your guests' crave. Ask yourself, what is their bliss point? Now it may be a sun lounger, it might be a snorkel and mask, or a hammock, or a pair of skis. If you feed their craving, you will get more inquiries. So the takeaway number 2 here is no one wants to see photos of your property. Potential guests need to imagine themselves on holiday. I can't stress this enough. This is one of the things that I identified in those early days and made a huge difference to my click-throughs and so on. So identify your guests' crave and feed it to them. Bliss point or product placement is key to getting more bookings. Okay, now I'm going to talk about thin slicing now, which is a little known factor which has a huge effect on the amount of inquiries that you get. And thin slicing is thinking without thinking. Traffic lights are red for a reason, and we're going to come on to that. And it's truly amazing what the eye can see and the brain can process in a fraction of a second. Now, eye-catching images are just that. They are eye-catching. Just think about that phrase for a second, because that's what we're trying to create here, is eye-catching images. We want to catch people's eye. And by understanding a little bit more about thin slicing, you'll be able to create eye-opening images that will result in more inquiries. Now, 90% of all information that comes to the brain is visual. So, I know, of course, you want to worry a little bit about your headlines and your copy text, but 90% of all information that comes to the brain is visual. And some sources even suggest that visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. So let's have a look at thin slicing in action. Now, even though there are over 1,000 squares on the slide that you're looking at, you looked at the red square. You couldn't help it. It's just this is what thin slicing is, and it comes down to a primal level, to help us avoid tigers or walking into fire, this sort of thing. And you just couldn't help it. And it doesn't matter where I move the red square to, it's the square you look at. Okay? And in fact, it even looks like your eye tracked it moving, but it didn't actually track. It is just the difference between two slides. And things get more complicated when I add 3 different colors, and you find your eye tracking in sort of a triangle shape here, looking at the 3 different colors. And it's always attracted to the brightest color, no matter where I put it. Now, I don't know if you can see where I'm going with this, but here we are. And you can really kill it in the listings environment by having bright photographs, as you can see here. Like it or not, like the red square, you are looking at this particular photograph. You can't help it. It's a primal thing. So third takeaway here is bright colors attract the eye. And in order to compete in a listing environment, your photos need to stand out, quite literally. You just saw the effect of that one photograph in the listing. Now, I'm hugely oversimplifying things here, because while thin slicing, the brain takes in huge amounts of detail and it makes decisions based on that information. So it's not only bright colors that we're talking about here, but you really do need to market colorful rental images that satisfy the craving. That's the first 3 things we've looked at here. There's rental images, a craving, and the use of color. If you can combine these 3 things into your VR photograph, you will get more bookings. And the bliss point and thin slicing, it isn't this photo on the left that we saw in the initial sale or rent game. It doesn't scream rental. It's not a very effective VR photograph, and nor is the one on the right here, because it's just too dull. And neither of these photographs contain any bliss point. So once again, some homework is go through, look at your photographs and identify and look for these 3 things. Also, with the way of homework, if you'd like to know more about thin slicing, and I recommend you do. Then if you just head over to Amazon, you can see there's a book here called Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. It's by Malcolm Gladwell, who was the first one to really use this term and describe it. You don't actually need to buy the book necessarily. You can see there's a listen button if you go onto Amazon, and you can listen to a part of this book, and it will explain a little more about thin slicing. And there's also another book here, Subliminal Persuasion, Influence and Marketing Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. And this is a fantastic book. If you want an edge in this industry, in this business, then I highly recommend this book. Now, here's a quote from that book. Great marketers and persuaders know how to convince you to buy a product without you even knowing it. Now, you can choose to believe that you're immune, but you can't choose not to be persuaded. That was like following around the red dots there in the thin slicing section. The power of subliminal persuasion can move markets and control consumers, and that's a fact. So that's not me saying that, that's directly from the book. But it doesn't stop with colour. And as I said, the brain takes in just breathtaking amounts of detail in a fraction of a second without you even knowing it. And it bases its decisions on these fractions of a second. So a little while ago, I came across an article that was called Photographing Your Product for Instagram. Now, I didn't actually read the article, but I've been doing this for quite some time before I even saw the article, but I want you to focus on what is your product. Ask yourself, what business are we in? You are photographing your VR, so what's your product? Well, we're not in the vacation rental business because nobody goes on vacation rental. We are part of a vacation. We aren't selling real estate. The buildings aren't our products. So we'll have a bit of fun here.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same.
So our product isn't this. It's nothing to do with the buildings. This is what our product is. We facilitate this. We facilitate people having a good time at our properties, swimming in the pool, relaxing in hammocks, reading books, etc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you the 12 most powerful products that you can add to your property photographs. Now, I've put them in groups of 4, and this first 4 they're all free, so it doesn't actually cost you anything to add these particular components to your photographs. And the first is clear blue skies. Now, everybody wants good weather when on holiday, and the good thing about clear blue skies is they're bright blue, so they attract the eye, and they're free. So it's the simplest thing. Look at all of your photographs, all of your exterior photographs, and if any of them have white skies or really, really cloudy skies, then reshoot those shots. And that's the same with shimmering pools. You don't want to photograph your swimming pool in anything less than a great day. And I'll be showing examples of these things in a second. Doors and windows. Look at all of your photographs. All of the doors and windows should be open. Once again, I'll come on to an example of this in a second. And flowers. There's a lot of us have nice flowers in the garden through the summertime. Well, include those in your photographs. You can see here with this little windmill that I was renting, I manoeuvred myself so that the aloe that's flowering adds some form and foreground, and better still some bright red, which will attract the eye. So we look at these each here quickly. You can see here the photo on the left, there's white cloudy skies, and the photo on the right is much punchier in colour. And it's actually the same swimming pool, and I took these shots about 5 minutes apart. The cloud was coming in from one side, hadn't quite covered the whole sky, so I quickly took a shot here, the right hand shot, before the sky became muted and white and overcast like the one on the left. I can see here these two shots are once again only taken a few minutes apart, and the one on the left is quite a standard shot. You see this a lot with the reflection in the pool, and on the right all I did was I really stirred the water up vigorously with big figures of 8 of my hand and waited for the ripples to go right across the pool. In order to get this effect you need the sun above you, so around midday, and you can see that the water looks a lot more inviting. The photo's almost come alive and is moving. You see this a lot in hotel shots and brochures for more expensive apartments and so on. It's very, very easy and free to create yourself. The doors and windows. Here you can see on the left this property with the doors and windows closed. It's, you know, screaming keep out. That's the job of doors and windows, is to keep things and people out. And here's the same property on the right with the doors and windows open, and you can see how much more welcoming this particular property is. And once again, flowers. If you have flowers in the garden, you know, get them in a bit of foreground. Foreground adds form and colour and scale and leads the viewer into the photograph. Foreground is one of the main things of a good photograph, yet you hardly ever see it in the vacation rental business. So the next 4 important things that I add to my photographs when I can and where I can: a suntan lotion. You know, this it screams holiday, has holiday associations. We don't tend to use suntan lotion when going to the office. Booze. We all tend to maybe we have a drink a little bit earlier than we would do normally when we're on vacation. Maybe we have one more drink than we would do normally, etc. And we can add booze to our photographs, and that enhances the holiday feeling. Cut flowers. Now, fill all of your vases. You know, they're no good sitting under the sink. If you have a lovely garden, then take flowers from the garden. If not, either buy some or some really good quality artificial flowers, and you can leave them in the rooms then. And lastly, out of this group of 4 is orange juice, for the reason that it's orange, if nothing else. Once again, I have some examples here. You can see on the left, it's a little tableau really, foreground of suntan lotion, a bottle of water, a magazine, maybe their bestseller that is just out, and a brightly coloured towel. And you can see these, attract the eye and reinforce holiday messages. I found that the orange bottles of suntan lotion work the best. Booze. Now, very, very often I see people staging their VR photographs with a couple of glasses and a bottle of red wine on the table, but they don't open the wine and they don't put it in the glasses. Whereas you can see here, that dark colour attracts the eye much better than an empty glass would. And I'm sending, you could relax next to this pool is the message here. There's just a magazine next to the bottle. And on the right, I'm turning water into gin. So I used to just carry around an empty gin bottle, and I used to buy a lemon before I'd go on a photo shoot. I put some water and maybe a few ice cubes in a glass, a slice of lemon, some water in the gin bottle. Looks like a gin and tonic. Somebody would sit around here in mid-afternoon, whatever, reading a book, sipping on a gin and tonic. That's what holidays are for. Now, cut flowers. As I said before, vases are no good under the sink. Much better to use them. The property on the left had a wild amount of bougainvillea, so I cut some off and put it on the bed and in a vase. This bedroom was in fact solely white, white bedding, white walls. The orange throw I bought from a Chinese shop for literally I think €1.50, and the 2 red pillows came from the lounge. I just wanted to inject some colour. Once again, we're thinking back to the thin slicing. I want my photos to be brightly coloured. Now on the right, slightly different. I'm creating a bliss point here, so a couple of a rose or something on top of the towels. It raises the bar. You can see some top quality hotels doing this. And orange juice. It's like traffic lights. The eye is drawn to the bright orange. Really helps with getting clicks. And it's cheap. You can buy orange juice anywhere. In fact, the one on the left, this property was in Orange Grove, so that's freshly squeezed orange juice. Okay, so the next 4 great products that we can add are paint, because it's high impact, low cost, doesn't take long to paint a wall, especially the wall behind a bed. If you Google luxury bedrooms, you'll see that nearly all of the photographs that come up from top quality hotels have the wall behind the bed painted some sort of colour. Bright stuff, any bright stuff will help attract the eye. That can be towels or kids' toys or whatever. Pool inflatables, kids' toys that go in the pool. Once again, they're very bright colours and make great foreground. And fruit. Green apples, oranges, watermelon, bananas, etc. They all attract the eye. So with paint, here's an example. Photograph on the left was, fairly standard, relatively dull lounge. And all we did was get the owner to paint the one wall. Took, less than a day, cost less than $20. And now we have a photograph that will attract the eye for sure. And in fact, all I had to do was add some artificial flowers, sunflowers on the mantelpiece, and a bowl of fruit on the right. And we've got something that got a lot more clicks than the one on the left. I split test a lot of these, so had real figures behind, and certainly the one on the right got more clicks. And here earlier we saw this bedroom, which was awful photograph, and what I did was I did a photo shoot without doing anything in the room. Just made the bed and put the lights on, did some fairly minor staging, and you can see on the right, once again, just painted one wall. The whole room looks warmer, nicer, the lights look brighter, and this got more clicks. Brightly coloured stuff, as I said, bright towels, kids' toys, the inflatable ring here, the little sailboat. Even though these are small things, when thin slicing, the brain will take in these small details, you'd be surprised. And on the right here, this is actually I've taken this from a slightly larger photograph, but this was a pretty boring bathroom, just 6x6 white tiles. And I bought, I think, from the pound shop or somewhere, these 2 deodorants because they were brightly coloured. I got a thing of earbuds and a nicely coloured soap. And it really, we're just trying to send a message here that this room is fit for purpose, and these brightly coloured things attract the eye and make it nicer than if it was just a plain white photograph. Kids inflatables, these are very cheap. You can get them all over the place. They make great foreground, and they also send holiday connections, as you can see. A photograph of the house and pool with a beach ball in the foreground will get more clicks than one without. And fruit, fruit's easy to get hold of, adds colour, form. As you can see, the watermelon works particularly well here. This is, otherwise I've just had a big black table in the foreground, wouldn't look very good at all. You can imagine yourself sitting here mid-afternoon, nibbling on a bit of watermelon, talking to your friends or relatives on holiday. So lastly, the other 4 things that I use in my photographs are al fresco dining. Now I show people where they can have meals al fresco, stage tables, take photographs, have breakfast. Parasols, by default, they're not umbrellas. Umbrellas are for rain. Parasols are for hiding under in bright sunlight, and they're brightly coloured. They're great for this type of photography. Hammocks, once again, they come in bright colours, and you can show people relaxing. Now, I don't always show somebody sleeping like this. I might take it from the other end with somebody reading like we saw earlier. And people. Now, just because the OTAs don't allow photographs of people doesn't mean that you shouldn't show them. There's nothing sadder than an empty barbecue photograph where you can have people enjoying themselves having a barbecue. It's a far stronger message. So al fresco dining, I tend to stage every single table inside and outside the property, and that's bedside tables, occasional tables, dining tables, poolside tables, etc. I will always put something on every single table because it gives me the opportunity to add colour and re-enhance the fact that this is a vacation property, a rental. Now, very few of us have the opportunity to have al fresco meals normally because we lead busy lives. We spend the morning rushing around getting our kids up and ready for school and then getting ourselves to work. So part of a vacation is having that extra time to sit around and eat outside, and this is a very strong message. These photographs convert very well, and if you're doing a photo shoot, I tend to buy these products on the way to the shoot. These are the first photographs that I'll take, as long as it's clear blue skies, and then I'll sit down and have breakfast because I'm going to be spending the rest of the day on the photo shoot. So it's a good way to start the day. This is the same with the photograph on the right. I've just put on some fruits and wine, an orange juice and a travel guide, and guests could easily be sitting around discussing where they're going to visit later in the day or the following day. Just enhancing these rental tableau. So homework, product placement, check all of the tables in all of your photographs. They should all be staged, as I've said, and for the reasons I've given. Parasols, don't really need to say too much about them. As I said, they're brightly coloured and they indicate that it's going to be sunny. The same with hammocks. This photograph on the right, now who would rather be sitting in that hammock than listening to me right now? And if you took that hammock away, this dilutes the shot no end. It could be anywhere then, and there's no real message. I'm dying to lay in that hammock. It's a real addition to the photograph. And as I said before, people, the photograph on the left, you don't need to show people's faces, but you could easily stage something like this with a floppy hat and an afternoon tequila sunrise or whatever that may be, because that screams holiday, vacation, absolutely screams it. Now on the right, these are a bit more difficult to stage, but you could run competitions for your guests to provide you photographs with themselves having a good time at your property, and possibly offer a week's free holiday for the winner of the competition in low season. And in fact, as long as it's not half term, most people won't be able to take you up on the free week anyway because their kids will be in school. But encourage your guests to send you photographs of them having a good time at your property. That's marketing gold. So takeaway number 4 is empty photographs equal an empty bookings calendar. And what I found the experimenting was the best results really when I staged the photographs as if guests were already staying there and they had just walked out of the photograph before I took it. So product placement adds colour, form and holiday associations, and best of all, these photographs increase bookings, which is what this whole video is about. Now, I just want to give you a bit of a warning. If you show it, replicate it. Train your staff. Now, if you're going to show roses on pillows, then when people arrive, you need to have a rose on the pillow. Now, you don't need to provide people with gin and tonic and the booze, but with some of the aspects there that I've shown you, if you're showing cut flowers in vases or artificial flowers in vases, you really ought to provide that for when guests arrive. So train your staff. Provide staff with training and photo guides of how the property needs to be presented. So give them copies of the photographs that the guests have seen at the booking stage, so that it's replicated for when people first arrive. The first impressions of arrival are very, very important, and you don't want to disappoint people. Now, just talk briefly before finishing about professional photographers. Now, professional photographers will take photographs of what's in front of them. They'll turn up with the camera and the expertise for the lighting, and they'll be handy in Photoshop to get rid of that hose pipe that's laying around or whatever. But they'll only take photographs of what's in front of them. So it's your job to stage the photographs, otherwise you'll end up with shots like this, which are, it's arty, but it's almost impossible to imagine laying on this lounger in a bikini, because now it's evening time. So it's an arty photograph and might look nice, but it's not going to get people to book necessarily. So I'd much rather see this photograph in broad daylight with a shimmering pool, maybe a side table, or at least a coloured towel on one of these loungers, and a paperback book. So photographers will only take photos of what's in front of them. It's your job as VR owners and managers to help create colourful rental images that satisfy the craving. So your homework is to produce better photographs, and you'll get more bookings.